Hi and welcome to a small tutorial about how to make nice loops for your projects. You see, thing is that when you surf around looking for stock media, like this one from Stock Nation, for example, it's already perfect. I'll explain why. When you go to the end of the video and it starts again from the start, you cannot see the point where it ends and when it starts. It's kind of like seamlessly loops. And that's what I call a perfect loop. It's when you don't know where is that point where the video repeats itself. But some videos are different. For example, this one. You go to the end and boom, see? You see exactly the point where it ends and where it starts. So for videos like that to be fixed for your project, and actually here's the thing. What I aim to explain here is how to conform all your videos to one standard. So like you decided that you want to make, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, maybe 100 videos that loop. And I think it's best to come up with some sort of standard, for example, that is going to be full HD, that is going to be a certain frame rate, for example, 30 frames per second. Maybe that it will have no sound. Probably it's the best, because normally when you have already a video like that, you will be able to put it into any project and then just kind of loop it as long as you need. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, no matter how long you need, you will be able to loop it and then put an audio next to it. So right now I will show you how to take a piece that does not loop perfectly and how to turn it into a perfectly looping video. So let's grab this piece. I will show you in two programs, Adobe Premiere and DaVinci Resolve. In Adobe Premiere, actually before you drop anything here, I think it's best to start by creating a sequence for this project. And the sequence you need to decide yourself, but I decided that for our project we need 1080p, 30 frames per second. So it's RE, 1080p, and there's the correct sequence template. Okay. I don't know, you can actually call it like loops. After you've done this, you can add a video. So we just drag it here, put it into the Projects tab. And first thing you need to do is make sure that the frame rate of this particular video piece corresponds to the desired frame rate. Our desired frame rate is 30 frames per second. This particular piece is 25 frames per second. So to change that, you need to right-click, modify, interpret footage, and assume this frame rate is 30 frames per second. Okay. Now you can drop this video onto a timeline, right? It will ask if you want to kind of change sequence settings, because obviously this particular video is larger than 1080p. So it asks if you want to kind of resize your sequence, but you don't want to do that, so you just keep existing settings. You want all videos that you have to be conformed to a certain standard. And our standard right now is 1080p, 30 frames per second. So you keep existing settings. And first of all, make sure that the video, if it's Premiere, make sure that it displays that it has the same size as your sequence. For that, right-click this video piece and set it to frame size. Don't use scale because it's a lower quality of the same functionality. So this is the highest quality that is possible. Set to frame size. Boom. Now it's resized adequately to fit our project. And this is how you make a perfect loop. Normally, you, let's say, take 2 seconds from the beginning. So the time code's supposed to be 200 here. You make a cut. You can either do it with a blade here, with a razor tool, like this, right? Wait, did I succeed? Yes. Or you can simply press Ctrl K. Boom. Now, make sure that the snapping is turned on, so the magnet is like, it shines blue, right? And drag this piece to the very end here. Not outside, but inside the block. Look, you just drag it and then it snaps. Boom, see, inside the block. That's how you do it. Now remove the space in front. And in here, make a transition. Just click it, right click, apply default transition. The default transition is supposed to be cross dissolve. Now stretch this transition to the very end of this little block. So it's like 2 seconds in size. And this is how you make a perfect loop. So basically it finishes and then transitions smoothly into the beginning of this video that we cut out from the beginning. So if we want to like duplicate this piece, if you want to see what is going to be, what will it look like on repeat, here you go. So basically that's what we did. It goes here. Oops, sorry. I don't have enough processing power, I suppose, for some reason. You know, Adobe Premiere always acts buggy in my case, so I don't really use it. I don't really like it, but since so many people use Adobe Premiere, I'm showing it for you. Let me show it a bit larger. So basically, the end of the clip transitions smoothly into the beginning. But for some reason it lags, so never mind. But it goes perfectly into the beginning and then you just keep on rolling. So this is how you do it. And then when you feel like when you feel like rendering it, my suggestion is to make sure, like, because you will reuse it for other projects probably, right? You will have this piece rendered out and you will use this piece to put into, I don't know, wherever you need it. So I would suggest to make it a very high quality render. So press Ctrl M or File, Export Media, right? Ctrl M. And here, make sure the format is H.264. The preset is Mesh Source High Bitrate. Disconnect the audio because you don't need this probably. And why don't you put, instead of 10, put 16. So it's a higher bitrate. Higher bitrate means more quality. And since we're just talking about small loops, it will not consume a lot of space on your hard drive. So it's not a problem. Because, for example, the length of this loop is only like 22 seconds. And then just export, that's it. So if you want to save this particular setting, I've already did, just kind of press here, Save Preset. I did it, it's called, in my Premiere, it's called Perfect Loop HQ. So again, it's H.264, it's just the video without audio, and I use actually hardware encoding to make it faster. And it's one pass, 16 megabits per second. That's it. But you know what? Sometimes, if you are more attentive, you will notice something. Check this out. Do you see? Do you notice anything? That actually this video is already looping something all the time. See? Check out this orange little thing. Here goes the orange, here goes the orange again, here goes the orange again, and again the orange, and again the orange. So basically, honestly, this loop is much shorter and can be even have more quality than what we did, because we actually fade one part into another part, and you can see that it fades. It's better than just like cutting it, but still, it's not the top quality possible. So if we want to do it like really perfect, if we notice that the loop is actually smaller, then why don't you just search for that some particular place that you will be able to memorize. For example, I will be able to memorize when this, let's say when this star here, right? This little star with the orange that comes along with the orange hits the very top. There we go, see? It just hit the top. This is where we're gonna loop. So we make a cut, we destroy everything here, and then we go to the very next place where we again will have the orange and the star. There we go, see, there's the star. And again it reaches the top. And we make a cut again and destroy all the rest. This is our perfect loop, I think. Let's try it. Let's duplicate it. And yes, sir. There you go. See? The actual perfect loop in this particular example, instead of 22 seconds, it's actually just tiny 2.5 seconds long. So when you render it into a perfect loop HQ template, right, 16 megabits per second, it will be just 5 megabytes in size. Tiny little perfect loop that you will be able to use for all your projects. Yes. So that's it. Remember, you start by creating a appropriate sequence that you will be able to later check here. Sequence settings. It's supposed to be 30 frames per second, 1080p, so square pixel, no fields. That's it. And once you've created this, you add any video. Let's add another one. For example, let's add this video, or maybe this. Wait, why don't we check? Let's see if this one is perfect. Yeah, this one is perfect. But well, anyway, since we decided that our project is of particular size, oh look, it's actually different frames per second. Like this one is 60 frames per second, so it loops perfectly. But since we decided that all our videos are supposed to be like 1080p, this one is actually 4K. So this video would need a different approach. We would need to, first of all, let's see, keep existing settings. Again, set to frame size, right? Before I change frame rate, let's check it out. Well, it goes pretty fast. If you like the speed of it, right? If you think it's pretty good, then it's okay to keep 60 frames per second, but only because 60 frames per second is twice as much as 30. That is the only reason. If this would be 50 frames per second, for example, then I would have to change it either to 30 frames per second or to twice as much as 30 frames per second, so to 60 frames per second. You understand? The next would be 120 frames per second. I'm not sure I can explain this logic a little better, but it's because how how Premiere will deal with this video. Like when this video, right, the 60 frames per second video is on the timeline, in order to play it back or to render it 30 frames per second, it will drop every second frame. So it show from the 60 frames that is in 1 second, it will show every second frame. So it shows one frame, it drops the second one, shows third, drops the fourth, shows fifth, drops the sixth, right? And same, for example, if this video would be 180 frames per second. Well, you know what? Actually, it would be also okay if it's if it's 90 frames per second. That would also work, right? The idea here is to make sure that it's either every second frame is dropped or every 2 frames after a frame that you need is dropped. For example, let's say that's actually why in Premiere, when you want to speed something up, speed duration, don't ever put stuff like, well, at least it's best not to put stuff like 120 or 125 or I don't know, 175. It's best to go with either 100 or 200 or 300, stuff like that, because of how frames will be dropped from the video. Maybe in this particular case you won't notice it. So let's put like 250 and see what happens. Maybe you won't really notice in this particular case. But when you have something like that pans, so it goes from a certain corner to another corner, you will see right away when the video has been incorrectly converted to another speed. So wait a minute. Why don't we take, I don't know what. Let's take any other video. I don't think I have anything to show, actually. Unfortunately, I don't have any panning video right now to show you the concept. Well, actually, this might work. Let's take this video. Let's see what it is. Oh, see, it's 29.97. So, for example, let's put it here like this, and let's also try to speed it up. Speed duration, let's make it like 150 or something. So here's what's going to happen. Look at the bars. I will go frame by frame. Oops, sorry. There, see? Boom. Do you see? It's weird. It like goes boom, 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 boom. So the motion is not. It's kind of jumpy. The motion is jumpy. But if we would have here 200%, the motion would be just fine. Look at this. Boom, 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 boom. So see, it's not jumpy. It's like, it's what it's supposed to be. So this is exactly why I tell you, if it's going to be 300, it will also be, I think, fine. There you go. 300, right, percent. So look at this. Let's find motion. There we go. Doom, 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 doom. Yes, it's also good. So anything that is like not like 2x or 3x or 4x or 5x, anything in between creates jumpy motion. And this is also why I tell you that it's a bad idea, for example, to leave 50 frames per second, because this will not equal to 2x in this case. In order to multiply this into 50 frames per second, this one has to be actually like 25 frames per second. So if you would have a sequence that is 25 frames per second, then it would be fine to put a 50 frames per second material here. So do not interpret anything that is outside of 1x or 2x or 3x of the sequence frame rate here. This is the rule. So in case of this particular piece, if you think this speed, oh wait a minute, let me do the correct speed, just 100 percentage. If you like this speed, if you think it's a normal speed, you don't want this video to be slower, then just leave it 60 frames per second. So basically it will just kind of drop every second frame and it's fine. But if you think this video could be slower, make it 1x. So like modify, interpret 30 frames per second. So what will happen is this video will actually be using every frame. So before it was like 60 frames in 1 second, but now it's 30 frames in 1 second. So it means every second became 2 seconds for this video, for this particular video. So now it's like slow, smooth, and perfect. And it's perfect because this particular video, when it reaches the very end, it transitions. Wait a minute, what is this? Copy, or let's do like this. Yes. You don't see the moment of ending one and starting another. So it's a perfect loop, but it wasn't perfect in the sense that the size was 4K, right? So I would actually make it, in this particular case, I would make it slower. I like it, that it became slower. And now also it will be converted to 1080p, which is good. And it will, if it had a sound, I don't know if it had a sound. No, it did not have a sound. But if it would have a sound, the sound would be disconnected because we render in a template that has no sound, right? Yeah, this particular loop will result in 40 megabytes of disk space because it's just longer, it's 20 seconds. But this is how you do it in Premiere. So in DaVinci it's very similar. It's also about, first of all, making sure that the project is like file, project settings is what you want. So it's 1080p, it's 30 seconds, 30 frames per second. The playback frame rate is also 30, and the video format is also 30, 1080p, right? So make sure that everything here is correct before you add the first timeline, because once you've added a timeline, DaVinci does not, at least DaVinci Resolve 16 does not allow any changes. And then you create a timeline. So see, once you've created it, going back to the project settings, see the timeline frame rate is already blocked. You cannot change it. And also here, if you want to put like any loop, you go like this. You don't need to set to frame size because in DaVinci it always adjusts to the frame size automatically. So again, you go to the timecode 200, you make a cut. It's Control B in DaVinci. You make sure the magnet here is turned on you drag it to the very end of the block, boom, you remove the beginning, and you make a transition. Like put any amount of frames, doesn't matter, because after that you will drag this transition to the very end of the block. Yeah, and again, remember that if you are more attentive with this particular piece, you will notice very fast that it loops itself in the smaller chunks. So you find another chunk that is like, you know, I chose a star last time, but in this time, for example, I can choose, I don't know, this bluish thing, for example. See, this blue, once it reaches up the very top, there you go. I make a cut, I remove everything, then I just go forward till I see that particular blue again. When it reaches the very top, boom, right there. I make a cut again, and there you have your perfect loop there. How about I paste it a couple of times so you see it? So as you can see here, here it reaches the end and just continues to loop. Great, right? And in case of the DaVinci, you would have to go to deliver, and in the deliver you choose MP4 H.264, you choose best, so this will also produce a bitrate of approximately 16 megabits per second. So it's 30 frames per second, 1080p best. That's it. The only thing that you need to do is make sure the audio is disconnected, right? So you export just the video. Add to render, and that's it. Start render. DaVinci will be able to render this twice as fast as Premiere. The quality will be almost very identical. Premiere is a bit better, to be frank, but nothing that is like, you know, critical, so to speak. So it's good enough in both these programs. But I prefer DaVinci because it just renders faster. I'm saying that I prefer DaVinci for rendering because it renders faster. Editing and, you know, all the rest is another thing, another topic. But I also prefer DaVinci in this case. So, with this being said, I leave you to create the perfect loops, and always be attentive because you might find that the material that you want to loop loops itself on a smaller scale. So be attentive to details.